And we're early. Give it a minute or so. Actually, we're basically right on time. According to my computer, I have no idea what Google says I should be. Uh, yeah. Need to send a whole new different set of messages this time. Got Tyler in, lost Gavin. Alright, I guess I'll message him after this. Just to see. Oh, I'm in the wrong group. That fixed it. Alright. Message sent. We can get started. Again, if this isn't the same people from last time, I hope everybody's doing good. Not going too crazy. Being stuck at home. I know there's some people working. I've talked to a handful of people that are actually going to work right now. And based on the numbers I saw in the last update, I think they're doing updates on the IBW 479 website. COVID-19 response. I guess they aren't. Alright, let's get started on the quiz. Only 11 out of 16 people have answered it. Now, one person quit, so we're not expecting him, so it should be 11 out of 15. I should probably drop him off the roll sheet. Alright, the cable assembly articles are each divided into how many parts? So, this has confused a lot of people in the past. They're looking for cable assemblies. And cable assembly isn't an article, it's a type of article. Just like the conduit articles, there's not an article titled just conduit. The cable assembly articles are the articles that are titled things like NM cable. I'm going to cheat and look at the table of contents, because I'm drawing a blank right now. Let's see. This will all be in Chapter 3. Ugh. Fucking hate this code book. Alright. NM cable. And MV cable, integrated gas spacer cable, flat cable assemblies, flat conductor cable, things like that. It should be the first handful of like 320, 322, 324. So it's actually before the conduit articles. It's the section of chapter 3 before conduit. And just looking at the table of contents, I can tell you there are 3 parts. in each of those articles. Again, this is pretty simple stuff to find. We're not, reaching too far into this topic yet. Part 3 of the cable assembly articles addresses which of the following? Construction specifications. That's, again, table of contents stuff. It's pretty straightforward at this point. Type FCC cable is defined as in what section in the NEC? 324.2. So defined might lead you to Article 100, but I would take a look in Article 100 before I put it. Like, oh, is it in here? No. And then it's going to be in FCC cables 324. This is another one of those super easy questions that gives you gives you 4 possibilities. You just have to flip to those pages. And is it there? No. Damn. Alright, bending radius of type so this is going to be installation specifications. That's part 2. That's the same as conduit articles. It's part 2 is installation requirements. Is it requirements? No, it's just installation is the title of part 2. Again, haven't left the table of contents for these answers. Type FCC cables shall be covered in carpet squares not larger than 39.37 inches square when floor mounted. So, what a type FCC cable is? It's I'm sitting at a computer. I can just look it up. Show you a picture of it. So, here's a good picture of it. Let's go back. Download my free ebook. No, I'm going to steal this shit. So, the way this works, it's a flat wire. The conductors are flat, the whole thing's flat, and then they use a steel covering to, like, it's kind of like the AC guys tape, and they use that to tape everything down, and then they put carpet squares over it. It's obviously has a limit to how many carpet squares you can, or how big the carpet squares can be, so you don't have to like take up the whole floor to access the cable. But yeah, it's for going under carpet, I guess, so you don't have to chop out the concrete. I've never actually used it, but the concept of it didn't make sense to me, so I looked up how it's used and stuff. Alright, type AC cable must have an armor of flexible metal tape and an internal bonding strip of copper or aluminum in intimate contact with the armor for its entire length. Yeah. So this is construction specifications of type AC cable. Now this is this is the second. You needed to go to the FCC cable article for this one, and this one also the type AC cable. Let's look. Armored cable. That's Article 320, and that's going to be construction specifications. If I'm not mistaken. Alright. So, this takes you go into Article 334. This is Romex. This is what we're talking about. Non-metallic sheathed cable. That's Romex and the bigger versions of Type NM cable. Uh, and the construction or the uses permitted and uses not permitted. That's usually at the beginning of the articles. I want to say it's point 1 and point 2, but again, I haven't flipped there, so let's go ahead and flip there. Wow. That's so rare when that happens. It is point 10 and point 12. Now that took was flipping to the page. And it's my wow was I flipped right to the page just randomly. The allowable ampacity of type NM cable. Excuse me. I'd cut that if I was editing this. Type NM cable cannot exceed that of a 60 degrees Celsius rated conductor. This is, I think it was last class or last week. Not last week. Last class. Let's go with that. I told you on the table 31015B16 on the 60 degree column to write Romex on it. This is why. Type NM cable cannot be used for anything above 60 degrees Celsius rating. Or it's supposed to be treated that it has a 60 degree Celsius rating. That's the better way to say that. The radius of the curve of the inner edge of a 90-degree bend of non-metallic sheath cable shall not be less than 5 times the cable diameter. And this is installation of NM cable. And there should be a bending radius. 334.24 is maximum bending radius. Or bending radius, not maximum bending radius. Minimum. You have a minimum bending radius, not a maximum bending radius. And it's just spelled out word for word right there. Pretty straightforward. How did you miss this one just now? Somebody just answered this one and missed it. I just saw the numbers move. They're obviously not watching the YouTube. Alright. Where a cable type wiring method is installed through bored holes in joists and rafters, holes are generally required to be bored so that the edge of the hole is at least 1.25 inches from the nearest edge of the wood member. So this one is going to be earlier in the table of earlier in chapter 3. I'm going to call that Article 310. Maybe I put in it 300.4. General requirements for wiring methods and materials. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. So 300.4A1. It's just straight up general requirements. The very beginning of the chapter, and let's flip to it for a second. 300.4A1, bored holes. Cables and raceways through wood members, bored holes. It's just looking it up through the index, I would go bored holes, or code book's disgusting. Cables. cables, and then holes. Nope. Installed in grooves is there. Sorry if y'all are hearing my vacuum go off. It should go away in a second. But I am walls. So the board holes is not in the code book, or installed in holes is not through wood members, through studs, joists, rafters. There it is. So the cables through studs or in joists and rafters. There's the keywords that you're looking for. Part 1 of Article 300 provides general requirements. Part 2 covers, this is table of contents stuff. Good job, everybody. Hey, 15 to 16 students answered. 14 of 16 students in the room. Somebody did it twice. Article 300 applies to conductors that form an integral part of equipment. So, this one, you're going to look in Article 300, and there's a scope section of Article 300 at the very beginning. And that scope will tell you whether it applies to conductors that form integral parts of equipment. Alright. This is going to be right next to that previous question that we had looked up, the 300.4A1. So, cables in joist, in studs, joist, and rafters. This would be, I would look up 300.5 cover. And because I just happen to know that 300.5 is the cover requirements. It's a table that tells you how deep you have to bury stuff. Somebody recently went and took their journeyman test, and afterwards they failed just barely, and they were like, yeah, it was pretty easy. And then like I started looking stuff up that I didn't know anything about afterwards. He's like, I didn't even know there was a cover requirement in the code book. I didn't even know that table existed. A 120 volt GFI protected 20 amp residential branch circuit is installed underground and type UF cable. The cable passes under an alley. The minimum burial depth for the UF cable is... Okay, and we're on 300.5. And you will use the details in this... use the details in this question to read that chart. Let's do that real quick. Yep, there it is. Open image in new tab. I wish I could remember to keep these open, like in between classes, so I don't have to look this stuff up every day this week. But it's never happened so far. All right. So the question we have is, residential, underground, type UF cable, under an alleyway. So it's direct buried cables or conductors. Uh, oh, here's another strong contender. Let's reread the question. It's either column 1 or column 4. GFCI protected 20 amps. So let's go with column 4, and we're under an alleyway. Under a building. Under streets, highways, roads, alleys. So 24. Let me read the last two. Yeah, it's 24. Which was the answer. That's so convenient. What first level subdivision addresses protection from damage for conductors emerging from the ground operating over 1,000 volts nominal? So we're going to go past, so towards the end of Article 300 will be the over 1,000 volts nominal section. So 300.50C. You'll go to burial. You want to look for burial depth over 1,000 volts. If you look up burial depth in the index, or cover requirements in the index, and then go from there trying to find over 1,000 volts, that should lead you there. I take you there. Alright, direct burial cables for use in circuits over 1,000 volts nominal shall be permitted to be spliced or tapped without the use of splice boxes, provided they are installed using materials suitable for the application. The taps and splices shall be blank and protected from mechanical damage. Watertight. We got a 300. So this is over 1,000 volts. We were kind of already led there by a previous question. Over 1,000 volts, direct burial. That's 300.50. All that stuff is going to be in basically the same area. Okay, this looks like it's going to be in Article 300 because it's talking about general wiring methods. Fire-resistant walls, penetrations through fire-resistant walls. I'm thinking that might be in the 300.4. It was not. So let's actually look it up. Non-fire rated assemblies, securing and supporting. So 300.11 is securing and supporting, but it's not penetrations. So that's not going to help us. $300.21. I hadn't made it there. So let's see what we should be looking for. Spread of fire or products of combustion. I mean, I know it should be fire stopped is the answer. So many things you learn and you just memorize. And then somebody's like, well, where is it? And you're like, in the code book. Okay, so I'm going to look up fire stopping in the code book, in the index. Flame spread, fire spread. Yes. Bleach this whole fucking code book. I'm so glad I'm getting a new code book. Fire spread. I forgot my alphabet for a minute. It's very important to know your alphabet when you're using the index. Fire stop partitions, wiring through. So firewalls, wiring through is what I was initially looking for. Because they're talking about putting a wire through a firewall. And that's 300.21 is where you're going to be sent. Because I didn't want to tell you guys to look for spread of fire, which would have taken you right there. But spread of fire is not what this is talking about. I mean, it is, but it's not obvious. But wiring through a firewall, so firewall, comma, wiring through. You might have been able to look it up in the other direction, looking up cables and then wiring through, or cables and then through firewalls. I'm not going to take the time to look that part up. Alright, so that ends this quiz. So this brings us to the quiz that will take place over lunch. I want to say that 1:45 is the next live stream. Let me start up. Let's go back to the results table. Make sure everybody that's worked on it is done. We're missing Gavin. Shame. My vacuum's stuck somewhere. It's really a first world problem whenever you're like, the vacuum that vacuums on its own keeps getting stuck. I keep having to go over there and bump it for it to vacuum the rest of the house on its own. Alright, you have your new quiz up. You guys have a good lunch. And I will see you again at 1:45.